Alabama going to LSU, 7:30 Eastern, ABC, Death Valley. I said this at the top of the live show. I want to say it again, though, so we get this in our game prediction video. A lot has changed about college football. Conference realignment, the transfer portal, NIL. Some of it you love, some of it you could do without. One thing that hasn't changed, though, is that Alabama going to LSU will be cinematic. It'll be college football poetry. For those 4 quarters now, it does not matter who portaled in, who portaled out. It doesn't matter what X, Y, and Z guy is getting paid or all. It is going to be all about this game, this atmosphere, and these intense fan bases. Now, the words elimination game has been appropriately given to this matchup because that's what it is. I mean, we're not going to act like it's not. It definitely has a massive, massive college football playoff implication going on with this game. The loser, you'd have to believe at 9-3, you're not making the college football playoff if you were to win out after losing this game. Probably not happening. But I want to make sure we say this too. This game, to both those fan bases, it meant something before the college football playoff had 12 teams. It meant something before the BCS era. Like Alabama, LSU, while these stakes being factored into it will obviously turn up the volume at certain points throughout this game and definitely turn up the volume for whoever loses this game. But make no mistake, like this game is impactful and tremendous outside of any college football playoff additives you want to put to it, just so we're on the same page there. Now, I want to make sure y'all know, before we get into our prediction, the Hard Count brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Code HARDCOUNT, $5 in lineups when you play. Got a square for you a little bit later in this game. $50 in promo funds. Y'all have been using that code. We appreciate you for doing that. Just a great way to maximize your college football Saturday. While you're doing that, also make sure you are subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. So let's get to business here. Alabama, it's kind of funny the narrative around them, the way it's evolved throughout the course of this season. Because after Georgia, and they, really should have beat Georgia by a lot more than what they ended up beating them by. Kind of took their foot off the gas, or not took their foot off the gas. Georgia accelerated quite a bit and was able to make that game very, very close. But Alabama, after that Georgia game, we're saying, hey, they're the best team in college football. Who's beating Bama when they're operating offensively at that level? If they're able to confuse Carson Beck, like how good could that defense be? And then things evolve throughout the course of the season. You lose to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt also a lot better than folks would give credit for, neither here nor there. Play close to South Carolina. You lose at Tennessee. And now the conversation around Alabama, I would say, has gotten borderline disrespectful. Nick Saban's not there anymore. Is Bama still Bama? Like, is Bama still Nick Saban's Alabama? We're going to find out here as the year progresses. But what I would say is there's still a whole lot of talent on this team. And I do think what they did against Georgia deserves a little bit of extra attention based on how we've talked about them the rest of the season. Like, Tennessee is a really freaking good defense. They are number 1 in America in terms of yards per play allowed, I believe, or at least yards per carry allowed. Bottom line, nearly number 1 or top 5 in every statistical category. So if you want to dunk on Bama, I would make sure we use the right context around their opponent, just so we're all on the same page there. Is it Nick Saban's Bama? I don't know. But I would say that if they're able to beat LSU, speaking of that college football playoff ticket they could punch, Mercer at Oklahoma, Auburn, all games that you would imagine they should win. I believe they would win should they find a way to get it done in Death Valley. Easier said than done. Now for LSU, I think the stakes are kind of interesting outside of the college football playoff because with the changing of the guard in Tuscaloosa, with Kalen DeBoer now being the head coach, and Brian Kelly being 1-1 during his time at LSU against Alabama, 1 win over Nick Saban, just so we're all clear here. I think if they were to beat Alabama this season, there is the potential now for the optics to reshuffle a little bit in the SEC in terms of where you view LSU to the top of the SEC and also relative to Alabama. Because make no mistake now, LSU and Bama, they're going to go toe-to-toe after the season ends on the recruiting trail for a lot of these guys, or I guess as we move forward to National Signing Day, that's going to be a massive thing to watch for both these schools. At least optically, if you beat Alabama and Brian Kelly can take the 2-1 label with him on the recruiting trail against Bama, I think that would mean something. I think that would only bolster their efforts, and I think that LSU honestly could kind of view themselves, quite frankly, in a different light as it pertains to how they stack up to Alabama, all right? Now, for LSU in this game, I expect them to be in attack mode from the jump. Like, I'm talking spraying the ball all around the yard. I'm talking missile launching. Like, we've talked about LSU in the context of, well, okay, they want to run to set up the pass. Maybe that's true, but I think you look at Alabama's secondary and you look at how they like to play. Alabama likes to tell you before the game and how they match up during the game We like our guys more than your guys. We're playing man coverage. Your move. If I'm LSU, I'm saying great. Awesome, because what you've shown throughout the course of this season, if you're Alabama, is that you have struggled at different times in man coverage. You watched the Tennessee game in different spots specifically throughout that game. I wouldn't look at the stat line. I'd look at the situations where Chris Brazzell gets a touchdown to ultimately win the football game. Deep shot to Dante Thornton. And that's a quarterback in Nico Iamaleava, tons of ability now. But I think Garrett Nussmeier is probably a little bit further along as a college quarterback than Nico Iamaleava. Lawrence Sellers, he was able to get rolling a little bit against Alabama. So I think there's a lot of area of opportunity if Alabama wants to stay in man coverage. And it's also worth noting here, I don't think that Alabama has played a receiving core the caliber of LSU to this point in the season. Like Aaron Anderson is a guy that I'm watching here very closely. They love him on third down. They love to isolate him in the slot. And then also Kyron Lacy. I mean, I think I mentioned him already, but like when he gets a matchup one-on-one, even if he's not visibly open, like a 50-50 ball for Kyron Lacy is not 50-50. It's 80-20. And Garrett Nussmeier knows that. He needs to clean up the mistakes if they want to have a chance to win the football game. Like Garrett Nussmeier has got to avoid what happened against A&M. To refresh your memory, he comes out firing. Vibes are immaculate for the folks in Baton Rouge watching the game going on in College Station. And then as the game progresses now, whether you want to blame Garrett Nussmeier for getting greedy, whether you want to give credit for A&M for being a little bit more exotic and applying pressure, like Garrett Nussmeier started to fumble the bag a little bit, for lack of a better phrase. Can't happen in this game, especially not at the crib, especially not with Alabama and how they're able to roll once they get some momentum. Now, I mentioned the coming out swinging kind of approach here for LSU because that is going to dictate the game flow. If LSU is able to have success downfield early, able to generate some points, let's say you're watching at home and it's, call it 14-3 LSU. At that point in time now, that's going to favor LSU, not just because they're ahead, but because that forces Alabama now to start to press a little bit more. Now, Kalen DeBoer, his background is more of the, I don't know if air raid is the right way to put it, but he wants to throw the football, historically. That's what he's done. However, with Jalen Milroe now, they've had to tailor the offense a little bit more to his skill set. Nothing wrong with that. That's what good coaches do. But if you have to throw to beat LSU to get back into the game, much less, I'm imagining if you're up in your LSU, Death Valley is probably rocking. Like that doesn't favor Alabama. Now, if you can have some success early against the pass, let's say maybe you don't play man coverage or you win your man coverage matchups, however you want to look at it, if you're Alabama, at that point in time, the game becomes, I don't know if low scoring is the word, but you probably feel like it's going towards a game played in the mid to high 20s. In that situation, that favors Bama in the inverse way of what I just spoke to. Alabama gets to run their offense. Jalen Milroe doesn't have to press quite as much and feel like they got to go chase points. They can run the football a little bit more. That is the formula for Alabama. And to be honest now, with it being in Death Valley, I wouldn't be surprised if they have to weather the storm a little bit here. I wouldn't be surprised if LSU came out swinging like I just spoke to and they have to kind of sit tight, hunker down. Maybe it is a quick score early on that first drive and Joe Sloan dials it up. Don't panic. Stay in your lane. Do what you do. Run the football. And avoid things getting out of hand is what I would say. Now, for Alabama, as much as you don't ask Jalen Milroe to go chase points, you do put a lot on his plate in this football game. All right, for a couple of reasons. One, he's your best player in the biggest game of your season at this point in time. We spoke to how much this game means, period, with these two schools and these two logos. That's clear. But like we spoke to already, college football playoff implications, you lose, you're not competing for a national championship, much less an SEC title, which is already a little bit more off of the distance than it was probably a few weeks ago. That's the first part. Best player, biggest spot. The other part of this, if you look at LSU throughout the course of this season, they have not been, what's the right word? They've been all right at defending the mobile quarterback. When you look at what they did against Taylor Green in Arkansas, they've also shown some areas where they look very, very gettable. Like I've said this before, if Lenoris Sellers stays in the game against LSU, I think South Carolina wins that football game because he was having a lot of success on the ground, especially in those option looks. Food for thought. Also, Marcel Reed, when he subbed into the game. Now, LSU didn't get a chance to really prep for him, or they didn't prep well for him at least, but you saw very, very obviously, LSU struggled defending Marcel Reed. Now, why did they have success, in my opinion at least, defending Taylor Green of Arkansas, another mobile quarterback? I think LSU did a great job in that scenario just cutting it loose defensively. Like, that's who Blake Baker wants to be. And when I say cut it loose, I'm not talking about reckless abandon. We're leaving guys open downfield. We're busting coverages just in the effort to go chase the football. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is you turn up the pressure and you don't try and cast a wide net and just sort of react to that mobile quarterback. You go after him. You say, all right, Weeks, go get him, baby. Go hunt. Let's go. Hey, off the edge, we're coming for you. Swinson, like things of that nature is, I think, how you have to attack Jalen Milroe in Alabama. So now, with no surprise of, well, Marcel Reed gets subbed in or anything like that for LSU in this spot, I'm curious if the experience now that they've had against mobile quarterbacks, I'm curious if that doesn't play in their favor in a very interesting and potentially massive sense. Now, the key here for me with LSU, defending Jalen Milroe and what he does on the ground. I think you have to meet speed with speed. That's 100% true. I think that's how you defend Alabama, with them going east to west so much, with attacking the perimeter and the bubble screens and the speed sweeps with Law and all those things. Definitely true. However, I think you still have to be honest up front in that front seven in how you stop the run. Because if you got to add in a safety, or we got to get a little bit too, I don't want to say cute, but maybe a little bit too exotic with how we defend the run, and we got to add extra numbers up from the second and third level. At that point, what are we doing? Yeah, we're trying to stop the run. Maybe we have more success stopping Jalen Milroe on a specific play, but it leaves us exposed to Ryan Williams down the field, to Jeremy Bernard getting loose over the seam, to the tight ends getting involved. Like, I don't think you want to totally dismiss your resources in the secondary in the effort to try and stop Jalen Milroe. I think that's a losing effort because of how explosive Alabama has shown they can be offensively. So I really do think it is on that linebacking core of LSU. Can you, with speed, handle Jalen Milroe and handle that perimeter run game? If you can, I think vibes will be very good in Baton Rouge. So I mentioned we had a prize pick square for you. I'm going to take Kyron Lacey and his receiving yard total. I already spoke to the Alabama secondary and the way they make me nervous. 70.5 receiving yards for Kyron Lacey. We'll take the more there. Again, code hard count, $5 in lineups, $50 in promo funds. So what's the pick here, right? That's what we're all here for. What's the prediction? My gut really does say Alabama. It does, because of Jalen Milroe, because of just the what-if factor with him. We've seen him take over games. We've seen this, like I said, Alabama's defense be opportunistic. We've seen this front seven be awesome. But I keep going back to a couple of things. One, I'd be wildly surprised if Garrett Nussmeier played as poorly as he did for the duration of the game against A&M as he does at home against Alabama. I don't think you'll see that second half implosion. I think you'll see a lot of good Garrett Nussmeier. I also keep going back to the fact that we picked against LSU at night when Ole Miss came to town. And I'll say this, Brian Kelly is undefeated at night in Death Valley. So, in some way here, I guess you could say we are fading our gut. We're going to go with LSU to win. By that logic, them being the home underdog, we're taking LSU to cover. So, Death Valley at night, Brian Kelly stays undefeated. And I think that LSU answers the call to action, and I think they show they are a mature football team, and they bounce back from the poor showing against A&M, and they get back right with a win at home over Bama.